Welcome to the Speakeasy and our new sit-down interview series called Whiskey Made Me Say It. We will interview the most interesting and humorous golfers, whiskey makers, and enthusiasts and enjoy their perspective on life. Sit back and enjoy Whiskey Made Me Say It. All right, Golfcast Nation, this is Brian Bailie here bringing you a new episode of Whiskey Made Me Say It. We have some special guests today in our distiller series. American Brick, which is a whiskey company up in New York. We have Brian and Kevin Crowell joining us today to speak a little bit about their product, talk a little whiskey, talk a little golf. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
We are doing great. This is a very cool opportunity, and I got to say, you are an idol for us, mixing golf and bourbon and whiskey and enjoying life. I mean, that's what it's all about. So this is a treat for us.
Very good, very good. Kevin, how are you tonight?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having us. Excited to be here.
All right, so my number one question I ask all distillers, why the hell did you start distilling whiskey?
You know what? I'm going to set the quick table, okay?
All right.
And this is going to involve a prop, Bri. So, I mean, this is a good opportunity. But my family back in 1872 turned a sawmill here in Ulster County, New York, into a brick mold manufacturing company. And I actually have right here one of the initial patent models back in the late 1800s. So your viewers can see this. And this is a miniature version of a Crowell brick mold made out of American hardwood and iron reinforcements. And basically the clay would go in here and it would press down into the molds, and then it would dry in the molds, be dumped and fired in the kiln. So we would make these molds. Obviously, brick mold making business was not sustainable. So about 10 years ago, I was talking to my dad when he was still alive, and we were trying to figure out, what are we going to do with the old brick mold factory? Are we going to turn it into a furniture studio or a place for painters and artists to work, or what? And Kevin, I'm going to turn it to him. He looked into some of the old family literature and found out that there was a still in the basement. And Kev, why don't you take it from there?
All right. Story's getting better by the minute.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly right. And yeah, you know, I'll quickly just say that my dad's showing you an original patent from however many hundreds of years ago, 150 years ago, we started making patents as the Crowell brick mold factory. And this is stuff that I was just so used to growing up. You know, my dad is sitting in the house he grew up in upstate New York, and I would see all this stuff and grow up around it. And I took it totally for granted up until I really started to realize how cool it was to grow up with it in this environment filled with your own family history. And so, like my dad said, about 10 years ago, we had the need to pivot. And what better way to pivot than to figure out what had taken place here in the past? And, you know, I had seen lots of things over the years that had come out of that factory as a little kid. I have early memories of seeing brick molds, of seeing sleds and furniture and so many things that this woodworking factory made. So there was so much to learn about upon, you know, actually getting to an age out of college where I'm starting to pay attention to the stuff I took for granted for so long. And luckily, when you have a business that's run for that long by the same people, and a grandmother and grandfather as meticulous as mine, they keep everything. And we were able to find some really cool stuff, not only in the documents and files that my grandmother kept and still has probably a couple feet from where my dad is sitting now. But we were able to look at the town library. We looked into, there's a bunch of different accounts of what had taken place in that brick mold factory over the last 150 years. And we found several accounts from several different sources. You know, there's like a farmer's almanac. There's a bunch of different essays that were written by people over the years. And several times they mention a still having produced whiskey in the basement of that Crowell brick mold factory that sits on Lippincott Road in Ulster County, New York. And so once we learned that,
I want to have you pause for a second,
just
for a public service announcement. We do not condone bourbon while operating heavy machinery, but it's a nice thing for after your shift. So
yes, and I want to know, was that still being run legally? Anyways, go on. I don't want to steal from the story.
Let's not go there.
Well,
let's not go there.
Well, yeah, I mean, it actually adds a cool part to the story, because you're seeing a small version, what my dad showed a second ago, of what a brick mold itself is. But part of this story is that they ran the still in the basement. We'll call it extra legal, and it was the way that our business had run over the years made it so that during Prohibition, there was kind of a built-in pipeline, and there was a built-in base of people who were interested in what was going on under the floorboards in that factory. And we have several accounts of it having been enjoyed by customers and by workers. And so we just fell in love with that story. And the moment is me turning to my dad in 2017, sitting on the couch in my parents' house, just saying, "How does American brick bourbon sound?" And it kind of just hit pretty hard. And so we decided to go back to our extra legal roots and bring it forth in a legal way.
There you go. I love it. I love that. So we have this epiphany that, okay, let's make whiskey. And then what's next? It's just not like, okay, let's fire up the old still and see what we can create.
Yeah, so
we had the idea, and I give credit for that idea to Kevin, but we quite honestly are not craft distillers. We have tons of respect for craft distillers, and we know a lot of your audience has that same sentiment. But we had a great idea. We had a 150-year-old family business, and we had the network of golf. And Brian, you know how powerful that network can be. And one of my students that I had shared the joys of golf with happens to be a pretty big deal in the world of spirits, and his name is Peter Deutsch. And we took the idea to Peter Deutsch at his family wine and spirits company in Stamford, Connecticut. And he said, "You know what, guys, it's not just because I like you and Brian, you showed me the joys of golf, but this is a great idea. And New York needs to come to the forefront with bourbon. You've got an incredible story. You've got great authenticity behind this brand, and I want to help you get it to the next level." So we've got to thank good partners like Peter Deutsch for helping get us to the next level.
That's awesome. So okay, so my next good question, now that you are in the whiskey business, and it's been seed to now 10 years, if you could go back 10 years ago and sit on that couch and say, we need to watch out for these one or two things as we're running through this process, what would those one or two things that leap out at you?
Rookie mistake. I was on mute. I would say that one of the things
he's not used to me letting him take the stage first. See, he wasn't ready for
that.
Fair enough. One of the things I look at, Brian, is, my dad is an incredibly creative person when it comes to design, when it comes to blending all the elements of our story and our brand together into what you physically hold and what you drink. And I would say that we had, you should see the first drawings of what our bottle looks like versus what we have. And we are so proud of what we had, but I will tell your audience this because I think it's a fun anecdote. The first drawing that we had of the bottle actually had a clay brick base to it. And it was to be a brick base with a glass top. And I'm telling you, you can have whiskey that's aged for 25 years and it won't cost enough to cover the costs of what it would take to build a glass bottle like that for a big production. So one of the things that I look at is, and we're learning this as not only as people in the brand building business, but in the actual business of building a company in the spirits world. You have to look at things realistically in certain ways. And, if we had we had the ability and the foresight to know what some of our design constraints could have been moving forward, I think that ultimately would have helped us ideate a little more efficiently in the beginning. But, like my dad said, what we bring to the whiskey industry and the whiskey business is a beautiful story of family history, of American longevity, of adaptation to marketplace, and so we had that skill set and we had that attribute to bring to the brand, but getting to know some of the real specifics of how to build a business in this industry is something that it's free knowledge. You can sit there and you can do that sort of thing without building the story. So there's other things that I look back on. But that stands out to me. I'm more business minded, but I think maybe the creative of the two of us can maybe bring some of his hindsight stuff to the table.
Let me show you, Brian, what we landed on with the bottle. So it's meant to emulate a brick. It's got a sawtooth brick pattern on the side here. And one of the things that we learned very quickly is the specs on label application are critical when you've got a square or rectangular front to your bottle. If this thing was circular, like 80% of bottles on the market, it wouldn't matter if the label was a little bit off. If this thing is off a 1/16 of an inch, you can tell. And it's funny, we learned so much about this. And as Kevin said, we learned it during the COVID years where the prices were all jacked up. I mean, the price of glass, we were trying to get glass from Italy and get different materials from around the country. And it was just really challenging, but I think it made us stronger. I really do. And we're very happy with the product.
No, that's awesome. So speaking of the product, give us a little insight. It's a 4-grain bourbon. So give us a little insight and kind of where it's produced and aged and all that great stuff.
Yeah, I'll start and say it is a 4-grain, and all those grains are grown here in New York near the Hudson Valley. So it's an all New York product, and I think we're making the Kentucky people very nervous. I keep saying that. But the bottom line is it's 60% corn, it's 20% wheat, 11% barley, and 9% rye. And personally, I like that wheated touch. Not everybody does, but I think it takes a little bit of the edge off. It adds a sweetness to the product, and it's 92 proof. And one of the secrets to the product is the water. And I know the folks in Kentucky are very proud of their water sources, and we are lucky to have a limestone aquifer that runs from the Adirondacks down through the Appalachian Trail. So what we've got running right under this property that I'm sitting on is some of the purest and sweetest water you could ever imagine. And I would ask you this, Bri, where do you get the best bagels? Where do you get the best pizza? It's all New York City, baby. It's because of the water. And we're lucky to have that same water. I remember having my cousins from Pennsylvania and New Jersey come over to the house and say, wow, we could drink this water out of your faucet all day long. So the importance of that water and the 4 grains that are harvested here in New York, I think that's a big part of our success right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Kevin, give us a little insight on the distilling process. Where is that? You're master distiller. What does that all look like?
Yeah. So our master distiller is Alan Kennedy. He works with us through Deutsch. So he oversees in Deutsch Family Wine Spirits, I should say. He oversees our entire distilling process. And we're working with a couple of different partners, all, like my dad said, within New York State. So we had a partner up in Rochester who we're working with as well. And then we're also partnering for some other products with another partner here in the Hudson Valley. And so there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening on our distillation front. And Alan is just a total pro. And we are okay with him being based in Kentucky, even though we are going after the Kentuckians with what we've got on the shelves. But Alan,
let me jump in for a second and just say Alan was a disciple of Dave Pickerel, who is a big name in the world of master distillers, and Alan is just absolutely phenomenal. So as Kevin said, although we're all about New York, Alan is a genius that is down in Kentucky and helping us to keep our product absolutely tight.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Dave Pickerel too, because it gives an opportunity to also shine a light on our region as well, because another Dave Pickerel disciple also makes Hill Rock, and Hill Rock is a Hudson Valley bounty product. And so there's a bunch that are popping up because with this craft spirits boom and wave that we're kind of riding here, some of these other regions are popping up, and obviously we're focused on our own, and just seeing what's changed in the Hudson Valley and New York City. There's a distillery in Manhattan now. That I don't think that was even really considered as any sort of possibility years ago. So you're now starting to see a bunch of different things, and Dave Pickerel obviously having the impact on the industry that he's had. Some of his other disciples are getting the message as well to really start paying attention to the bounty of the Hudson Valley, and we're representing it really well in our water. That's really representing our actual family property, which we're incredibly proud of. But you add that to what the region has to offer, and you get a really, really good product. And that's why we've got some of the awards to show for it. 96 points from International Wine and Spirits in San Francisco. So we've got a really great product, and we are so excited to be working with Alan, and he's done a great job really making it the best it can be.
So what was the first year your bottle was out? So after you came up with this idea, you came up with a distillant, you figured out the barrels, and we'll talk about barrels because finding barrels is always fun. You got some barrels, you stuck it somewhere for at least 2 years. It is a bourbon. So it's stuck it somewhere for at least 2 years. When was the first release, and what does this look like?
Well, we have a mash bill that's kind of representative of our area and the history here in the Hudson Valley. So we went with a mash bill that makes a lot of sense for us and the history of our property. And we do have a product that's aged at least 4 years. Most of the product is 4.5 to 5. And again, we've been very, very fortunate, as Kevin said, to get some awards right out of the gate. Our connection with Peter Deutsch has led us to a relationship at Total Wine and More. So we are in locations around the country, and we've been on the shelves for, we'll call it 13 or 14 months.
Okay.
And so far it's just doing a great job. We're excited about it, and we're trying to get it in the hands of the people that we really love in the world of golf, which is why, again, I apologize, Bri, for you not having a bottle like I do right here in my hands. I'm sorry about that. But
no worries. Like I said, I have some coaches coming in, and I actually have one in the Raleigh-Durham area, and I looked on your map, and the Raleigh-Durham area does have. So I sent the address, and they're coming up on Saturday. So I've referred them there to see if they can find it, and if not, I'll track it down. But I know with state laws with alcohol. And Virginia is very barbaric. We're state-run, and there's a whole cabal there with the state government. So I get the issues with trying to get into the state. But so yeah, I love the idea of I love the idea of we're craft, but we're not craft. We have much bigger sights than that. So where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years? Is there going to be a secondary line? Are we going to create some different mash bills? What does this look like?
Yes, my biggest flaw, Brian, is probably getting too far over my skis and looking too far into the future.
Not a
And
flaw.
I will. So I'm the one that's looking a little far ahead, and my dad keeps me present, and we're a good yin and yang on that front. But I would like there to be many SKUs of American Brick. I don't want to become. We're not big on getting too crazy with some of the finishes. I enjoy Fireball like anybody else, but we want to stick to the classics. We've got some ideas about how to really emulate our region in New York State. There's a great history of Applejack in New York State, so having some sort of nod to the apple industry, or to the apple orchard culture that we have in New York is something that we're thinking about, and that goes into maple, that goes into a couple of other ideas that we've got for finishes. But then we also look at doing cask strength, maybe doing a couple of single barrels. We've got a lot of things that we want to do, but in 5 years, before I let my dad go, I want to say that we want to be known as one of the lower end of the premium tier stuff. So you have your blend, and I talk about that in terms of price range. Our price point is $65 a bottle right now. We like being there. We think it's perfect. We think it absolutely represents the quality of our product in a great way. And so I really like where we're sitting on the shelf in terms of price point. And I'd like to build out rather than going up or down. I want to build outward on that number. So looking down the line, I think you'll see a couple more SKUs of American Brick.
Nice.
As the co-founder of a brand that sits on the shelf at $65 to $72, I would like to ask Brian if he can edit the Fireball piece. I'm not sure if he can go back and just cut that out.
Well, technically, Fireball's not a whiskey. It's not high enough proof. But
No.
anyways.
I know.
It's meant to show that I think that, I don't mean to get too critical of certain things, but when you get into some of the stuff that goes down like that, where you're looking at, like a honey jack, we don't like doing things that are in that level. We're going to stick to, we've seen brands going down those roads a little bit, and
yeah.
I'm a Jack Daniel's fan. So when I take a sip of honey jack, it's delicious, but it's not Jack. So it gets to.
I want to put it on vanilla ice cream. I mean, I just love it. By the way, I just poured another little neat glass because I'm worried about where we're going with all this.
Who knows?
I would love to put it to you, Bri. I mean, listen, you're a specialist in the industry. Kevin and I both walk into Total Wine and More, and we see this beautiful thing that we are so proud of, but it is just one bottle in a sea of bourbon.
Yes.
And we all talk about how we could get another partner for it on the shelf. What comes to mind for you? I mean, I know you haven't tasted it yet, and that's going to change very soon, but what would you recommend to co-founders like us with this beautiful 4-grain bourbon? What would be number 2? What's the next SKU?
Well, I think one, I love your bottle. Like, that would stand out in the sea. So I think that's a cool piece. 2, you have to have a story. If your story's no good in the bourbon world, you're in trouble. You can have a great bourbon, but if you don't have a story, you're in trouble. Check that box. I think, again, the native grain is rye. I love a good high rye bourbon or a good rye. So I would encourage you somewhere in the future, if you can come up with a high rye or more of a rye based because we couldn't grow malt in the Northeast. Rye was the grain. George Washington, again, the father of distilling in the U.S., created great ryes, even though he brought a Scotsman over that could not grow malt or barley anywhere. So, but I think to me, I think the finished whiskeys are neat. They're fun. But for the whiskey heads out there, we really like a good bourbon that you can drink neat. You know, port cask, all the it's great. I love that. But I think again, I like the idea of the skew just growing sideways and creating different versions of. Again, maybe just tweaking your mash bills. You know, just moving a little mash bill, a special barrel that has a special mash bill. You know, any of those little, you know, this is a once in a lifetime barrel. You'll never see this mash bill again, kind of thing. Or those are all great as well. But I love the 4 grain. I love 4 grain bourbons. I appreciate every bourbon for what it is, even Jack Daniel's #7. No, I'm kidding.
Not bourbon.
But to me, you know, I think that's the exciting piece, and you know, I'm rather new in the whiskey world. You know, I really got heavy into whiskey during COVID because, come to find out, ABC personnel in Virginia was actually, you know, essential workers. So we started drinking a lot of whiskey during that period. Is when my love for it. So yeah, I think anything along that line is exciting, and I'm looking forward to having my first glass of that.
I will say that is great perspective and great feedback. And I think, like Kevin pointed out, the history of the apple industry in the state of New York, but man, you hit on the rye note, which I think is really fantastic, because there's a whole Empire Rye division that we have been looking quite a bit at. So we're anxious to get that new SKU out there, and I think rye is a real good angle to consider. That's for sure.
Well, Kevin, answer me this: when you walked into Total Wines your first time, and you looked on the shelf, and there was the American Brick, what was your thought?
So it number one, it's surreal watching the culmination of many years of design and ideation and research and pitching and getting all of our things together on, you know, really seeing the nitty gritty of putting a business together come to fruition really didn't hit until you walk into that Total Wine and you see the bottle on the shelf. There was nothing like it. And, you know, I was blown away by how cool it was to see my great ×4 grandfather right on the front of that thing and be able to see my name on it. It was pretty incredible. And to know that also it had a couple of the things that we had done prior, that getting some of the awards and getting some of the things behind the brand that would really make it stand out, seeing that right next to it, knowing that we had a little bit of a boost to come in and get people to try it, you know, my mind floods to, okay, here it is. Let's get people to try it. So, you know, it's a quick moment of wow, we did it. And then it's another flooding of, we've got to get some people to try it, and it stands on its own. It's got the numbers to prove it, and it's going to have the taste to prove it. So that's the next journey of just getting people to try it. So it was an incredible moment. And
we need to drive down to Virginia and join a Greens and Grains event with you, Bri. I mean,
Please do. I will send you all the dates. So we do Greens and Grains, which is our small group, and then we try to do a couple big events during the year where we'll pick. Like we went to Ireland this year, played some golf, drank some whiskey, had a good time there. We're looking, so maybe we can even come up north, maybe fall or maybe next spring, and we can kind of kick off something there. I think that'd be exciting.
You see this on my shirt. That's not for Brian Bailie. I'm at Bally's Golf Links at Ferry Point, a beautiful Jack Nicklaus a signature links course in New York City, and we would love to host you guys up here. I mean,
all right, we'll definitely work that out. So I guess what would be, you know, I'm not a big cocktail guy, but there's a lot of great bourbon cocktails out there. What would be the ideal cocktail that the American Brick would showcase itself in?
You know what? I'm going to jump in and say I've learned something in the past 3 or 4 years. In fact, I've learned a lot when it comes to the world of spirits. But it used to be that there was this $50 mark, and if your bourbon was under 50, it was more conducive for mixing into a cocktail. And if it was over 50, then you wouldn't dare mix it with anything. And that has been thrown out the window as far as I can tell. There are a lot of people that are really enjoying very high-end bourbons with a mixed drink. I mean, I'm an old-fashioned guy. That is something that I really love. I try and go a little light on the syrup, but I think the old-fashioned is such a classic portrayal of bourbon in particular. I'm a bourbon old-fashioned guy, but and I love it when they put on the show. I mean, listen, you're in golf. We're all about entertaining people. When they bring out the smoker and put on a big show at the bar, I'm in. I love that.
In.
So I typically will get an old fashioned. This is my I'm letting you know my tricks here, Bri, but I will order an old fashioned, and then I order the second round neat, and I just mix it in. I just keep mixing it in I keep it dirty, just the original glass. But for me, the answer is old fashioned.
That's fair.
Think?
How about you, Kevin? Any ideas?
Yeah, no, I tend to follow suit with my dad with old fashions, but at the same time, I'm also a real caffeine addict, and I just saw, and I haven't tried this yet. Now I've already pissed off your audience enough with my Fireball comment, but I'm gonna go again. I'm doubling down on pissing off your audience, let's hear it. Because I like the idea of some sort of bourbon espresso thing. Now, I haven't found one that I like really yet, but I've seen it. It's been fed to me on the algorithms, and I'm interested. So if I had to add another possibility to the mix here, I order it. I drink brick neat. I drink bourbon neat. I'm with my dad, maybe a tiny drop of water if I'm at home and I can do that. But but at the same time, it's
sorry, my camera went dead.
For me to go espresso
for some reason. Hold on.
No problem.
Let me just switch.
I'm so glad it went dead while he was talking about martinis and.
That's right.
I mean, do you want to?
Who said martini?
You want an umbrella in that drink? I mean, do you want a little umbrella with it?
Well, when in doubt, pinky out. It's all good. All right, gentlemen, I've kept you long enough here. Let's say dream foursome. We'll tie this into a little golf. You have a dream foursome. You have American Brick. Who's going to complete your foursome?
Well, for me, you're looking at one of them, and that is my son. And my dad would be the third, and just about anybody who enjoyed spending time with good people could be the fourth. The good thing about golf, Bri, is that generally there are lots of really good people in golf, and great sport for networking. It's certainly been very helpful to me. Maybe I'd even put Joe Hallett in there. Could you imagine?
Oh, you don't do that. That's a waste of a day.
But we used to, when my dad was alive, we had the triple generational, and Kevin and my father and I would play a lot of different great courses up here in the Met section. And I would love to have another shot at that, and just put someone who really enjoys family and enjoys golf and enjoys beautiful things along with us, and it would be a dream.
Awesome. Kevin, you want to stick with that, or are you going to go out and branch out on your own foursome?
Be careful, umbrella boy.
Well, I largely stick with that. I think we're a couple years away from having the third in our tri-generational here. My son is a year and a half, and if I say, can you show us your golf swing, he does this. So
Beautiful
I
finish.
Got half of it
Beautiful
down.
Finish. Yes.
So couple years, and then we'll have 3 out of the 4, and then I completely agree with everything my dad said. So it's tough to think of.
I defer to Kev. He just found the perfect answer, which is 4 generations in one foursome. Little Addison Benjamin Crowell. What is he now, Kev? I mean, he's about 17 months. I mean, such a joy. I mean, this
Awesome.
little boy, our grandson, I hate to say this publicly, but I'm sleeping with a grandmother. But we are so proud to have that little man in our lives. And there you go. So it's Addison, Kevin, me, and my father. That's the dream foursome.
There you go.
Was that
very good? Well,
that's just a dig. That's a dig because he's calling me Umbrella Boy, and then he throws that in there, and whatever.
Yeah, it's all in love. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Let's circle back. When I do receive my bottle, we'll circle back and we'll do a quick tasting together, and then we'll definitely figure out how we can meet somewhere, definitely in the future, and anything we can do via Golfcast to help y'all, please let us know. And we appreciate your time, and we look forward to seeing American Brick show up everywhere.
You know what, Brian? I gotta thank you again. We're mutual friends with Joe Hallett, who is another example of all the great people in the world of golf. But I am so happy that he introduced us, and I've watched what Golf Cask is doing, and the channel is incredible. I mean, you've got ideas about how to change the world of golf. I mean, you should be the new commissioner from what I've seen on.
No, they just need to listen to me.
Just listen to you. But thank you so much for this opportunity, and we got to get some American Brick in your glass, and we'll meet up here very soon.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, guys, I appreciate that. And just like I said, we'll push this out in a bunch of different ways, and we'll hit all the socials. I think we have about 15,000 people there, and then we have just the members that bounce in and out. We just started YouTube. I've fought YouTube, but we've actually started moving stuff over there, a bunch of free content there, just to try to grow our brand. And we'll stick, like I said, we'll put this everywhere and do our best to get this in front of as many people as we can for you.
Well, I know I speak for Kevin. We want to return the favor. I mean, we've got some plans for a little podcast with the brand as well. So we're going to get you on the air, and I've got my Sunday radio show. So whatever we can do to repay the favor, but we want to help you grow what you're doing. And it's just nice to have people that love bourbon and golf and good people.
No, I agree. And Joe Hallett is one of the best of them. He's about as good as they get.
Yep.
Well, y'all have a good evening. I appreciate it. And I will probably have this turned around probably by Monday or Tuesday this week.
Send me your physical address. We will have a pop in the mail. Thank you, Brian.
Will do. All right. Thank you all. Have a good evening.